Mfuleni. West Coast police arrested a man for being in possession of endangered plants, and four of South Africa's cities ranked dangerous in a Mexican report. Good evening. Mfuleni police are investigating a case of murder after a 41-year-old man sustained gunshot wounds. The police's Joseph Swartboy said that officers attended to a complaint in Extension 4 in Lerato Punaan Street, where they were informed that the victim was transported to a nearby hospital.
The medical personnel informed the police members that a 41-year-old man was brought to their facility, though sadly has been declared deceased upon arrival as a result of sustaining gunshot wounds to his body. The unknown suspects, who fled the scene in an undisclosed direction, are yet to be arrested. The motive for the attack is unknown. Mfuleni police are investigating a murder. Anyone with information is kindly requested to call Crime Stop on 08600 10111.
West Coast police arrested a 34-year-old man for being in possession of endangered succulent plants. The police's Joseph Swartboy said that the N7 flying squad responded to a complaint for assistance from provincial traffic near to Pikanierskloof.
On arrival, they requested the passengers to disembark the taxi with the intention to search the vehicle. The members confiscated a suitcase and a backpack filled with succulents. A 34-year-old man was arrested and detained on a charge of possession of flora without documentation.
To the story now, and the Mexican Council for Public Security and Criminal Justice has identified 4 South African cities amongst the 50 most violent cities in the world. According to that report, Cape Town is ranked as the 11th most violent city, followed by Gqeberha at 23, Durban in 35th place, and Johannesburg ranking in at 48th. The rankings are based on the number of murders per 100,000 people in the cities. Cape Town has the highest number of murders in South Africa overall, with 2,911 murders recorded for the period, giving a murder rate of 62.22 people murdered per 100,000. The city's murder rate is mostly attributed to gang-related violence. Now, the top 10 most violent cities are dominated by Mexican cities, from the 1st through to 8th position being within the region. Zamora in Mexico is ranked as the most violent city in the world, with over 196 murders per 100,000 people. Sports news, and Lions speedster Baldwin Hansen will make a welcome return to the Currie Cup action when his team faces the Bulls at Emirates Airline Park. Hansen last featured against the Sharks nearly a month ago in a match which saw him register a 5-pointer for his side. Kickoff is at 8 p.m. Meanwhile, former Marty's fly-half Geordin is at full back for the Sharks team. They are hosting Cheetahs at Kings Park. In fact, that match is underway. Well, that's where I leave it news-wise for today. Do enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. For Bush Radio News, I'm Mitchum George.
For more news, log on to www.bushradionews.blogspot.com.
Bush Radio, 89.5 FM News.
Good evening. My name is Lerato Mashile, and this is, of course, the Cape Town Mayor Geordin Lewis Radio Simulcast show. Now, tonight we'll be discussing the meaningful interventions made by the city of Cape Town to make our city safer for residents, filling in the gaps left by national policing agencies. And, of course, joining me in this discussion is, of course, the Cape Town Mayor Geordin Lewis, as well as the Mayoral Committee Member for Safety and Security, Alderman J.P. Smith. Now, of course, if you want to be part of this conversation, please do send us your WhatsApps on our WhatsApp line on 061 862 1065, or you can send us your SMSs on 32158. But please be advised that SMSs are charged at R1. Gentlemen, good evening. Firstly, Happy New Year. As I said, Alderman, how are you?
I'm very well, ma'am. Yourself?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Mayor?
Hey, Lerato. Lovely to see you again. Can you believe that another month is gone? It flies by.
I know, right? It feels like I just saw you like last week, but It's okay. Now, first and foremost, Geordin, we'll kick off with our recurring show starter. What would you say has been the most significant developments over the past month aimed at moving the city forward?
One can really feel that business in Cape Town, tourism in Cape Town, events in Cape Town are starting to take off again in a big way. And that is really great to see, because goodness, our economy needs it after 2 difficult COVID years. But this month we've just had an explosion of events, 4, 5, 6 a day. Lots and lots of film shoots happening in the city. Our hotels report to us that they are fuller than they've ever been in the last 2 years. The Cape Town airports, their passenger numbers are getting back to pre-COVID levels slowly but surely. So that is hugely encouraging. And of course, the one other big thing that was very encouraging to see, and which we are going to discuss in more detail tonight, perfectly led on by the story that Mitchum has just spoken on air about, was the Cape Town crime stats, which show that this is the only city in the country where violent crime is actually going down. And we think that is because of the investments that we are making to keep Cape Town safer and get us off those violent city lists that Mitchum was talking about.
Now, turning to the topic of the evening, a very important discussion about safety in our city. Now, in recent weeks, there's been a number of shootings in Khayelitsha, Bonteheuwel, Lavender Hill, as well as Manenberg. Let's start with how the city is responding with the SAPS to address safety concern for these communities.
Well, that's why I asked JP to join me. It's really great to have my colleague JP Smith here online this evening, who is our MACO member for safety and security. And I really was so sad to hear about those violent incidents the last couple of weeks, particularly because they come after the excitement and success of those crime stats that we got just last month.
Yeah.
So it almost feels like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So we know that we've got more to do to get Cape Town safer and get us off those lists that Mitchum was talking to us about. But we are very, very encouraged with the progress made in those crime stats and the incidents of the last 2 weeks. And in your news bulletin tonight, just remind us that progress is slow, but it's in the right direction. But there's a lot more work to do.
Definitely. Now, if you want to be part of this conversation, please do send us your WhatsApps on 061 862 1065. I'll say that again a little bit slower. It's 061 862 1065. Or you can send us your SMSs on 32158. But please be advised that SMSs are charged at R1. Now, JP, let's talk briefly about, the statistics or the impact of these LEAP deployments have into the arrest and the confiscations.
So I think I wanted to tie on firstly, Lerato, with where Geordin left off, and that is with the stats by the Mexican NGO. That these annually are bad tidings that remind us of how big the hill is or the mountain ahead of us that we have to climb. And I agree with him that the statistics don't reflect the reality of what people have to experience on the ground, the pain that families who are victims of that crime go through. And there are a couple of key measures. I see the Minister Cele said today that he's going to continue with his imbizos until answers are found. But I want to say, I don't think that the public owe the minister the answers. The answers are self-evident. They're well known. They're widely discussed and frequently repeated. And it's essentially refund the police, put back the losses and staff numbers that we've suffered, get us closer to international best practice. That's a very simple thing. It requires political will and budget accordingly. We have around 26,000 SAPS members that we're losing over 3 years. We're in the second year of those losses. No community can afford to lose SAPS members. That's why we're having to pump in LEAP. We're proud to do it. We're happy to do it. But we're also compelled to do it because SAPS is continuously stepping back from this fight because their hands are being increasingly tied with low numbers. Secondly, reinstate the detectives. We are about 8,600 detectives short. They cannot have caseloads of 250, 300 cases. There's no detective in the world. A detective can handle 20, 25 cases max. Beyond that, it's justice denied to the victims and their families. So reinstate those detectives. That's low-hanging fruit. And thirdly, as the state president himself said in the last week, bring back the specialized units. You need an effective extortion task team with specialized investigators and prosecutors to tackle the extortion crises that Khayelitsha and some other areas are experiencing that is driving that constant crime violence. You need effective specialized units to focus on your taxi violence, which is the epicenter of your assassination industry in this country, your hitmen for hire. Go read Mark Shaw's book, Hitmen for Hire. It unpacks it in great detail. And you need specialized units, properly resourced units, not just the AJ there. AJ is a good first start, but it's not the solution. You need those interventions to go and tackle your gang violence, because gang violence in Cape Town is 24 to 40% of our murders is gang related. Strip those out of the equation, and Cape Town disappears off that list, that international list. And unfortunately, that can only be done with very specialized interventions. So LEAP shows we can bring some relief to these 10 worst crime-affected communities. They drive about half of all of our violent crime stats. We've made a first investment. There's more to come. And the exciting part for me, and I'll conclude with this, is that the detectives that support these LEAP investigators, the investigators, that which Minister Cele is complaining so bitterly about, they're about to be deployed. We're proud to deploy them. We don't mind if it makes him uncomfortable. It's okay for him to be uncomfortable on this, because it is absolutely right that we should be deploying people to do watching briefs on our firearm and drug and serious violent arrests to make sure that there's convictions. We don't just keep on recycling those criminals. Otherwise, the community's just seen the same bad guys reappear on the streets endlessly. That leads to your vigilante violence.
I just want to add to that, Lorato. I think some listeners might not know what we mean when we use the word LEAP.
Yeah.
LEAP is a City of Cape Town and Western Cape program called Law Enforcement Advancement Program, which has pumped 1,100 officers paid for here with the ratepayers and residents of Cape Town's money to make up. The key point of that is that investment is to make up for the loss of SAPS officers that JP is talking about. So as resources have been withdrawn from those communities by SAPS, we are pumping them back into those communities, and it is making a difference. The results are really, really encouraging, as I said in those crime stats last month.
Now, speaking about, the positive impact, I just want to know the positive impact of these units has been reflected in recent quarterly SAPS crime stats. Please just elaborate on that as well.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, this was the encouragement of those crime stats last month. Just to fill listeners in, we've just finished the first full year of their deployment. And so it gives you a good idea of pre-LEAP and the effect of LEAP that it's had. Also remember that they are only focused on the 10 worst violent crime hotspots in the city, those worst precincts. We've seen huge reductions, a 40% reduction in murder and attempted murder in Kraaifontein, a 30% reduction, a 30% reduction in Nyanga and Crossroads, 23% reduction in Harare Site C and Khayelitsha Site C, reductions in Mitchell's Plain, in Hanover Park. So we are just seeing all of the places where we are actually deploying those LEAP officers. Violent crime is coming down. So we are very encouraged by that. Now, of course, that's before we've had these terrible incidents, which on the face of it, we are not detectives, but on the face of it, they look like gang recriminations in Khayelitsha in particular. That's before that. But we're going to carry on making those investments because we know that our first responsibility is to keep Cape Townians safer. And even though this is actually a SAPS government function, we've got to do more here in Cape Town because we can't rely on SAPS national leadership to get this right.
Definitely. Now we invite you into this conversation. Please send us your WhatsApps on our WhatsApp line on 061 862 1065, or you can SMS us on 32158. But please be advised that SMSs are charged at R1. We are discussing the meaningful interventions made by the city of Cape Town to make our city safer for residents, filling the gaps left by national policing agencies. And of course, we have our Cape Town Mayor, Geordin Hill-Lewis, as well as the mayoral committee member for safety and security, Alderman JP Smith. Now, we have a WhatsApp here that says, and I quote, "Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Smith. What was the city's reasons for removing the walking bus project? Doesn't this contribute to the safety of citizens? And what is the city doing in regards to lane closures as criminals use these as scapegoats?" Two questions in one. Let's
Can I
start
take
off
the first
with
and you take the lane closures. Okay, so thank you very much, sir, for the question, or ma'am. The walking bus program was a voluntary program, started in 2016, actually 2017, and was always a voluntary program until about 2 years ago. And in that time, the budget has just exploded to a place where it's not sustainable for the city to continue paying that much every year. And so what we are doing over the next couple of months, by June, July, we'll be ready to launch the new and improved program. The idea is to reorient the walking bus program towards protecting our frontline service delivery staff and emergency services. So one of the biggest problems in Cape Town is that our service delivery staff, that's water teams, sewage teams, electricity teams, even ambulances, you won't believe it, but ambulances get robbed often.
Yeah.
Firemen, they can't get into certain parts of the city because of safety issues. So that program is being reoriented to offer dedicated protection to our service delivery teams and to our city facilities, because the other huge problem is the theft of cables, of metals, the destruction and vandalism of city facilities in poorer areas, which really hurts everyone's interest. So we are bringing the budget down somewhat, and we are reorienting it to focus on those new and very important kinds of protections. And the applications will go out in the next couple of months, or the call for applications, and all of the dedicated people who've been doing walking bus will have first dibs on applications. And so they should watch the city's social media for those. That's going out pretty soon.
And then JP,
The lanes.
Yes, the lanes. The question was, what's the city doing regarding the lane closures as criminals use these as scapegoats?
So you can't give a politician a microphone and expect him not to try and do his own agenda setting. So I just want to say, when we take half a step back on the question of what's happening with the crime stats, whilst we have managed in all those leap areas to either reduce or stabilize, there's one or two areas where we've just kept the crime stats stable. You have to see that against the backdrop of the fact that around the rest of South Africa, those murder rates have gone up 8.9%. So it's, if the tide is rising and you're still managing to pedal water in the same place, that is an achievement by itself. And on the lane closures, I want to say that the first port of call is always property management. So speak to your councillor and engage property management. And there have been quite a number of these lane closure applications that have gone through council. We're happy to close the lanes, but there has to be community consultation. You will be amazed that communities do not agree. I'm aware of one particular lane that has now been in a matter of dispute for around 15 years that I'm aware of, where the community is sharply divided on the matter. So unfortunately, as obvious as it seems to some, so absolutely improper it seems to others. And so we have to engage in the public participation process. It's a requirement of law. And I would advise that where communities consider lane closures, they rather consider incorporating the lane into private property. Where the lane remains a dead space, it is invariably the barriers are broken down. It is invaded. It becomes a problem area, becomes a place where drugs are kept or harm is done to people. So better to incorporate that property into the adjacent property, extend somebody's garden, rather than keep the lane sitting there with just wire fencing on either side. And then I think that by and large, that the same applies for many public spaces where we encourage communities to find productive uses for dead space. Space that stands idle or fallow creates harm. You want communities to be able to use that, whether it's for a five-a-side kickabout or any other purpose. Lease applications are always welcome.
Now, still on to you, Alderman Smith. Please tell us about what other measures are being explored and implemented to target crime, such as CCTV and other technology.
That must be a sweetheart question, because I'm lucky that I'm sitting next to a mayor who has a robust appetite for the safety investments. Following on previous Mayor Plato, that also made some very substantial investments in this space. So in this, at this moment, we are going through the tenders for the return of the gunfire detection system, which will allow us again to respond rapidly to every single gunshot in the areas where it's deployed. So it's like, instead of looking at crime like a CCTV camera, this listens to crime and tells you exactly within 2 meters of accuracy where the gunshot came from. So we respond to every incident. We are able to gather evidence. We're able to speak to witnesses. And during the previous iteration of this project, it increased our firearm recovery rate by about 5 times. Considering that we're currently taking about 20 to 30 firearms a month off the street, or of the streets of our city, it will make a welcome addition to getting more of those guns off. And every gun off the street is 2, 3, 5, 10 lives saved that gun would have harmed. There's a huge amount of budget coming through in July for CCTV cameras, by far the largest I think that we've done in the last 2 decades. It's a massive amount of CCTV that will really extend our footprint dramatically for CCTV across our most volatile areas. And we use the SAPS crime threat assessment as our guide as to where these cameras should go. So they're going where they're absolutely needed. Along with that, we're also working on strategies to make them less susceptible to vandalism. There are places in this city where as soon as you repair a camera, within a week or two, it's vandalized again. The ESCOM cable that feeds it with power is stripped out. The telecom cable that feeds it with connectivity is stripped out. So we're having to take all that off grid with solar and Wi-Fi connections. And those present different threats because it is desirable to climb up a pole to take those batteries. And then, of course, eye in the sky. That's the big evolution that we're doing now, also supported by our mayor, where we're putting up a surveillance eye very high up in the sky and able to monitor day and night the activities of wrongdoers, whether it is poaching, metal theft, or gang violence or otherwise, and guide our resources to those spots.
Definitely. Now, if you have any questions, please just do send us your WhatsApps on 061 862 1065. I'll say that again. It's 061 862 1065. Now, we have another WhatsApp here that says, I live in Strandfontein, and as residents, we started a neighborhood park and watch and patrol 1 hour each night. Our crime stats have dropped to 0 for February. Why doesn't the city train and equip the neighborhood watches?
Come on, what a great question. Yeah. I just want to say, Lorato, I was really expecting the lady with the sewage spill on Jake's Carvel to call in again today. And you know that we literally had a team driving up and down Jake's Carvel because we couldn't find that sewage spill. But eventually we found it.
Okay, that's
so
glad.
I'm sure she's listening.
We love
fixed.
it.
It's
we
fixed.
love it. We love news
but
like
JP
this.
wants to talk about neighborhood watches.
So we have invested massively. Helen started that when she was mayor. Dan put it into overdrive, and it's still continuing. We have around 50,000 neighborhood watch members around our city. It's a really, really powerful tool. This is really, I mean, just for the record, however many CCTV cameras we can put in the ground, they're not nearly a match for the 4.6 million CCTV cameras we already have, which is the citizens of our city. Every person walking around is a roving camera with an intelligent processing unit. So every person, if they simply report what they see and they give us tip-offs, 021 480 7700, that information we act on. Some of our best busts, the incredibly impressive 350 or 370,000 rand drug bust we had, tip-off backed up by a canine drug dog that found the stuff. So that's invaluable. The neighborhood watches are by far the largest role player in this. They drive massive improvements in safety, mostly around property crime, less so in contact crime, because much of contact crime actually happens behind closed doors, and they don't patrol inside people's houses, but they do drive down contact crime as well. They're an incredibly valuable initiative. About half of those are formally accredited, and we push jackets, torches, bicycles, whistles, and in some cases body cams and all kinds of equipment to them. We'll soon release an app which will allow them all to talk to each other and to talk to us. Just last week I spoke to MTN, and we've previously spoken to Vodacom about zero rating the data to that app, sponsoring that, so that they can talk to us and to each other for free when they use that app. And there's constant training of neighborhood watches. We have 4 coordinators working around the city now. So any neighborhood watch that wants to do this can contact me or my office, and we'll put them in touch with the coordinator for the area.
We love that. Now,
Awesome.
of course.
And I think we must just say to that caller from Strandfontein, really well done. 0 crime stats.
Oh, man.
Incredible achievement.
We love that. And just so that the person, I have a WhatsApp that says, inform the mayor that the person is listening and is very grateful for the feedback.
Yes.
So you got your feedback.
Yes.
You got your feedback. But we have another question that says, message from AJ. Hi, sirs. How are you managing the root of crime? Because the cause of the crime is often being resulted as poverty.
The root cause.
Yes.
The root cause of crime. Okay, yes. So thank you for raising that. I mean, it's absolutely true that every one of South Africa's social problems, including crime and all of the other social problems we have, will get worse so long as poverty is getting worse and unemployment is getting worse. So when you've got 75% youth unemployment, often I think, jeepers, we don't actually understand the magnitude of that number.
Definitely.
When 8 out of 10 young people can't find work.
Definitely.
So that's why I talk about a sense of higher purpose in Cape Town, because we focus on all of these other things. Of course, we have to. We're making enormous investments in safety, as JP's just outlined. But everything that we do has got to be focused on growing our Cape Town economy, meaningfully foster, so that we can lift people out of poverty and get them into work. Because that is the only way to give people a dignified life, to free their potential as humans, but also to get all of these other social issues under control over time. That is the only way. And so everything that we are focused on, whether it's, you and I have spoken before about making Cape Town the easiest place to do business in Africa.
Yeah.
Actually, even our efforts on safety also have a very significant economic aspect, because so many businesses say they are afraid to locate their businesses in poorer parts of the city. They're afraid to come to South Africa at all as businesses and investors because of the safety situation. So it's all linked.
Definitely. But we'll slowly do our bit. But now, of course, we'll be shortly reaching the conclusion of this evening's show. But let's just summarize your vision for a prosperous Cape Town.
Well, I think that question that you've just read leads perfectly into that. We want a Cape Town where there is meaningfully less poverty, where people are able to, in the words of our constitution, free their potential as individuals, as people, where they can get a job opportunity, where they can feel a sense of confidence and hope that Cape Town is a good place to raise your kids, that your kids will have opportunities here, that their kids will have opportunities here. And in order to do that, we know that we have got to go further than we've gone before, not only in getting the basics right and being a standout among South African cities for good governance, but to do some of the things that we've spoken about tonight to protect residents from failures that are happening in a whole lot of essential national services like policing, like public transport, like electricity, so that you can know that when you are a resident in Cape Town, that you have a government that cares for you, that sees you as an important contributor in society, and that is doing the tough things necessary to deliver great basic services and to secure your future here in the city. That is, in a nutshell, our vision for Cape Town.
Definitely. And then any final words from you, Alderman Smith?
I think that along with what the mayor has said, we understand that at the moment we're in a mission to make sure that the public choose the side of the good guys and not the bad guys. There is a battle for the soul of every young person specifically, and our police officers must act in such a way that they build trust, that people know they can trust them to protect them and not harm them. So that's why we give rigorous effective discipline. We are doing, when one of our staff is accused of something, we make sure that there is discipline. If you've done something wrong, there is going to be consequences. But at the same time, we are trying very hard to be responsive to when the public complain. They must know that if they complain, we are trying very hard to attend to every single complaint. There are more complaints than we have resources to respond with, but we prioritize those. So on your most serious complaints, those where there's threat to life or property, we are prioritizing those. We generally get to about 97, 98% of those complaints. When it gets to nuisance complaints, the barking dog and the other stuff, that drops a bit lower, but we are trying everything we can. We've put systems in place to make sure that there's transparency and accountability and consequence management for that, we are getting our staff to act in a manner that is accountable and that we can check up on, when there are complaints. So that's important to us. And then increasingly, we're focusing on training our staff to be problem-solving orientated and not the skop, skiet and boomklim type. There's enough of the jackboot type of policing, and you'll see that even in LEAP, we are pushing now to start advancing a slightly different modality that will focus on some of the officers doing increasingly working with those high-risk individual cases where we will do referrals. We did this as an experiment as part of the Delft Neighborhood Safety Team, which was the precursor to LEAP, where we did referrals through the so-called focus tables to social workers and stuff to make sure that we deal with individual young people's challenges and that we start addressing those. and that not all of our solutions involve trying to give somebody a fine or arrest.
Now that does, of course, conclude this evening's show. Thank you so much to the Cape Town Mayor, Geordin Hill-Lewis, as well as Alderman JP Smith. I mean, thank you so much to the listeners at home and online who have tuned in. Join us again next time as we continue with these engaging topics, and most importantly, these topics that make sure that we continue to make Cape Town great. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be with you again and speak to you in a month's time.
Yes, which feels like a week, which we absolutely love.
Mine is more like a year.
Right?
Next
Like
year.
Happy New Year again. I feel like I need to say it again.
You too.